Product acceptance was introduced in 1994 to provide assurance that products accepted for use on or about the UK rail infrastructure are safe, compatible, reliable, fit for purpose, and do not export unacceptable risks to the operational infrastructure. The product acceptance process helps mitigate the risks associated with the installation or use of products and systems on the infrastructure by making sure that they comply with the requirements of technical standards, specifications, and legislation. Critical products that require product acceptance are referred to as controlled products, whereas products that do not require approval are referred to as uncontrolled products. A list of categories of items that typically fall within these definitions can be found in our guidance documentation. The product acceptance process is applicable to the introduction of new or modified products and systems that may affect the operational infrastructure, a change of application or change in operational environment for a controlled critical product, a change of manufacturer or manufacturing location of a controlled critical product, the installation of a product owned by another duty holder on or about the infrastructure where there may be issues of compatibility with our infrastructure. Items that require product acceptance should, where relevant, align with the rail technical strategy and will have been evaluated by the applicant against the rail industry readiness levels, or RERLs, to demonstrate that technology readiness levels up to and including TRL 6 have been completed. Reliability readiness levels up to and including RRL 7 have been completed as outlined in Design for Reliability Standard NR L2 RSE 0005. Only the technology and reliability levels within the RERLs apply to items progressing through product acceptance and design for reliability. When assessing a product's alignment with a matrix, you can only have reached a RERL if you have met the requirements of both the TRLs and RRLs up to that point. Responsibilities. Product acceptance is managed by a centrally based team who are responsible for administering the process in accordance with the standard NR L2 RSE 10005 and for engaging with all stakeholders so that products are progressed as efficiently as possible. Other stakeholders involved with the end-to-end process are the applicant, who is normally from a network rail route or region, acts in a sponsorship capacity and demonstrates a business need for the product or change. The applicant is accountable for liaising with and requesting evidence from manufacturers or suppliers against technical acceptance requirements set by the lead reviewer. Lead reviewers are competent network rail or independent engineers who set the technical acceptance requirements, path through the FR if required, assess responses to the requirements, and recommend acceptance of the product. The Network Technical Head of Asset Discipline or Delegate endorses the approval of products for use on the operational infrastructure. The Route Services Catalogue Management Team are responsible for the allocation of PADS catalogue numbers. Route Services Category Managers are responsible for reviewing applications for alignment with commercial category strategy. Regions and Capital Delivery are responsible for supporting trials on the infrastructure. Process. The process has 4 stages: application, assessment, operational trial if required, and full acceptance. An application is submitted via our online form, from or on behalf of a suitable internal sponsoring applicant who wishes to use or purchase the equipment. Applications are required for new items and changes to existing controlled products. The product acceptance team will review the initial application within 5 working days to make sure that all the required information has been submitted, confirm whether product acceptance is required, and seek clarification from the applicant that the product has completed the required TRL and RRL. If the design for reliability requirements of completing RRL 7 for trial product acceptance or RRL 10 for full product acceptance have not been met, this will delay the time taken to approve the product. In these cases, the application may need to be submitted as a DFR inquiry to gain early engagement with the lead reviewer, clarification of the path through the DFR process, and awareness of the requirements for DFR and product acceptance. The product acceptance team will allocate a product acceptance coordinator for each application, who will book the application into our system and be the point of contact during the process. The product acceptance coordinator will pass the application to the relevant asset owning engineering team so that they can review against engineering strategy and assign a lead reviewer to it. Root services are also sent a copy of applications to assess against commercial strategy. Assessment. The lead reviewer reviews the application and sets generic and product-specific technical requirements, as required by relevant company and industry standards, specifications, and legislation. The list of requirements will be sent to the sponsoring applicant so that they can liaise with the manufacturer or supplier and obtain evidence to meet the requirements. The lead reviewer will review all received requested evidence and determine if trial or full acceptance can be granted. Failure to provide all requested relevant information is likely to cause a delay of the approval of the product or system. Operational trial. If an operational trial is required, the lead reviewer will provide a time-limited trial certificate, which includes trial conditions that need to be met before full acceptance is granted. Trial certificates are endorsed by the relevant network technical head and must have been issued before commencement of any trial. The product acceptance team will distribute the trial certificate to all relevant stakeholders. The applicant will coordinate the trial and obtain the evidence from the manufacturer or supplier to meet the trial conditions. Trials may be limited in scope to specific projects or geographic areas. Full acceptance. When all technical, trial, and any DFR requirements have been met, the lead reviewer will recommend full acceptance. A full certificate will then be endorsed by the relevant network technical head for distribution by the product acceptance team to all relevant stakeholders for onward distribution and briefing. The process is then complete. Hints and tips. There are guidance notes and a frequently asked questions document linked to the application, which provide process guidance and examples of items that fall within the scope of the process. It is recommended that all applicants read the guidance before applying. When a product that you wish to use or install has been identified, it is advisable to engage early with us so that we can assess the requirements for product acceptance and design for reliability, and provide guidance on the best route to achieving approval. To reduce the timescales and avoid delay, it is important to submit all technical and any required DFR evidence as quickly as possible. For questions relating to the product acceptance process or in relation to any technical requirements, please contact prodac@networkrail.co.uk.
Yeah, I just had a question in regards to products that slightly differ after product acceptance. So I'd recently had a situation where a hydraulic buffer was being proposed, but we were told that we were required product acceptance. But the hydraulic buffer was being designed in a specific location and would probably differ elsewhere in the UK. Is product acceptance required for that differing buffer, despite the fact it's still made by the same manufacturer? even if it does slightly vary in its design?
Yeah, and any change that alters the actual product, so and alters the certification that it resides on, would need to come in as a change request, because the change, when the engineer undertook the initial review, he wouldn't have obviously reviewed these changes, so there would be a requirement to undertake some level of technical assessment on that change.
So what does it does every product have to go through like a trial procedure? Because how do you do that with an item such as a hydraulic buffer? It's going to be installed. It's very unlikely it's going to be able to be installed as a trial. It's going to have to go in as a permanent appearance.
Well, they could trial it. If it's going in on one location, they tend to issue what they call a location-specific trial certificate, and monitor it for a period of time until they deem that it meets all the requirements and mitigates any risks, and then they'll change it over to a full certificate for wider use or whatever.
Paul? Sorry, Paul, did you have a question? I'm not sure we can hear you. I'm not sure we can hear you, Paul, if you are asking a question, but maybe in the strange. I think, yeah, I'm not sure we can hear you. Maybe in the meantime, we have a question in the chat. Roger, is a sponsor always required to go through the product acceptance process?
In all cases, apart from for plant items. So plant items are items that typically Network Rail don't purchase. And we've got an arrangement in place where what we call plant assessment bodies can undertake product acceptance on our behalf. So in those cases, the manufacturer will engage directly with the plant assessment body, and they will undertake all the product acceptance and design reliability work. And there won't be a need for a sponsor because there's nobody internally trying to purchase that, or they're not trying to demonstrate a business case. But in the majority of cases, other than plant, then yeah, a sponsor is required. And as I say, it's all around making sure that there's a business case. And at the end of the day, to make sure that when we've approved something, that somebody in Network Rail is actually going to use it and or purchase it. Because in the past, we did allow some items to come in without sponsorship, and when we undertook some analysis, there was quite a few that hadn't ever been used or purchased. They'd gone through the process, and obviously it's quite time consuming from our engineers to undertake the technical assessment. So we want to make sure that all the items that are coming through are sponsored. Hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Roger. I've seen that Paul has just typed his question in the chat, so I'll just read it. So once a product is approved, is it required to maintain PA and update documentation as required if the product changes, which throughout its life cycle can happen regularly, but by then we have no sponsor and so we find a delay occurs?
Well, there are a few instances, yeah, where the original sponsor disappears, but the vast majority of cases we find somebody within whatever team or project was associated with it that's happy to take it through. If not, and it's because we get quite a few instances where we've got obsolescence issues, we seek sponsorship from within Network Rail Route Services, and they typically are happy to take those kind of scenarios through.
Thanks. We have another question in the chat asking if there is a person or a contact of someone who can help us through the process. We have been trying for IPROC for 2 years and have submitted numerous applications, but have struggled to get a response. So is there kind of a person or a go-to contact for that?
I'm not sure what that question's asking, because IPROC is something that Network Rail Route Services deal with. It's one of the purchasing systems, so I'm not sure what the applications are or what they're trying to, or who they've tried to contact in relation to those.
I don't know if you wanted to come in on that, Keith. If you wanted to add anything. Maybe in the meantime, just kind of a general question, I guess. So I know we have, some SMEs on this call will have been in rail for a long time and some might be new. So kind of what advice would you give to SMEs who don't work in rail or who are new to rail in this kind of product acceptance area?
I think it's key to start engagement, obviously, early, first and foremost, to determine whether what you've got is something that we want in the industry. And one good route to start that dialogue is via organisations such as RIA or Rail Alliance. Better still if you've engaged with somebody within Network Rail, because you can always sort of get they can easily sort of engage with us, and we can start that discussion. If it's something that's a new innovation, we have an R&D function that you can email or email us, and we'll pass you over to them for discussion in relation to new innovations. We have what we call challenge statements, which you can find on the Network Rail corporate website, which is a big list of the challenges we're looking to solve, broken down into various technical areas. And if you've got something that aligns with one of those challenges, you can email the team associated with those, and that'll go straight to the relevant R&D. If you're in discussion with a tier 1 contractor, start discussing with those, and they've got their links in with us and our various projects and regions. So again, that's another good point of call. And if you've not managed to find anything, you can always email us, and I'll type in the email address just in case you didn't catch it on the video. and then we can sort of pass it on to either R&D or our regional colleagues to see if there's anybody interested in engaging with yourselves in relation to whatever the technology is.
Thank you. So we have another question in the chat. Do you have any advice on how to engage with sponsors?
Again, I think for all the routes I've just gone through, because and particularly through probably the tier one contractors, because as I say, they have the link in with our various regions and projects, and they'll have their go-to people that they deal with on a regular basis. It's not easy to pinpoint somebody specific. People sometimes ask, do you know who would be interested in this? And the answer is usually probably not, because there's, thousands of project managers and route asset managers and such forth within the business. So, they don't typically come to us asking if we know anybody that has a device that they can use, a product they can use. They typically come to us when they've got a solution that they want to take through the process. So at the end of the day, the process kind of works in that way. The people from within the business, normally have to, they've got a problem and they've gone out to market and started to look for solutions. And when they find something, they come to us and say, submit an application form, say this is something we're interested in, and then we'll start that early engagement to determine whether or not the item does need acceptance or not, and if it does, whether or not it's ready to go through the process at that point, because items need to, as it says on video, reach a certain point in the rail industry readiness levels before they can actually, be assessed against technical requirements.
Thanks. So we have another question in the chat. Is the risk that finding a sponsor will become even harder with Network Rail taking a thin client approach?
I have no reason to believe that it will be any harder. From what I've seen so far with the changes in the regions, they seem to be coming to us with more requests for product acceptance than ever before. There seem to be a lot more engagement with newer SMEs than ever before. So no, I don't. There's no evidence that sort of tells me that at the moment, anyway.
Thanks. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to just raise your hand or put it in the chat. Maybe in the meantime, I was wondering if could you maybe share some examples of best practice, and maybe some SME members on the call also would like to share some examples of best practice, what works well, when it works well, kind of. Do you want to start, Roger, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know about examples of best practice. That items that go through the process smoothly are usually because there's been plenty of early engagement. We've been able to ascertain, an early stage whether or not something does need approval, and where it is in the rail industry readiness level. And as soon as we've started discussing that, we can give a better idea of, the road to approval, so to speak. And of course, the quicker we get in the evidence against technical requirements, the quicker items go through the process. About 90% of the items that get stuck in the process tend to be because we're waiting to get evidence back. And obviously, you know, unless the engineer's got the responses to the requirements that he says, you know, he can't really go as far as any certification. And likewise, when items are on trial, the sooner that the trial conditions are met, the sooner that we can provide full acceptance. As it said on the video, the certification for trials tends to be time bound. You know, most items get a 12-month certificate, but you know, you don't need to wait 12 months. You don't need to undertake a trial for 12 months. If you can get the evidence back within 3 weeks, then that's all the better. Likewise, I suppose we've designed for reliability, which is the process that runs in parallel to our own. You know, a level of design for reliability is required for virtually every item that goes through the process. And most of the requirements of design for reliability are required before you actually get to product acceptance. So the earlier you start collating that evidence to go through that process, and if need be, sort of engage with us to determine which path you need to follow through that process, then the quicker that information's in, the quicker, again, that we can go about putting it through the formal product acceptance process. I've seen another message come up, and I'm not sure. Generic application safety case. I'm not sure what you're referring to then, unless it's a safety cases that are assessed by what we call system review panel. If it's in relation to those, then to give you a bit of a right, yeah, good. So products that go through system review panel tend to be those more complicated products or systems that need to be assessed by multiple sort of engineering disciplines. So you might have something like a track asset, but it also needs to be assessed by electrification, operational safety, occupational safety, ergonomics, EMC, all these kind of areas. So instead of sort of passing them from team to team to team, we put them through system review panel so that all of the relevant engineering teams can review all of the risks via a series of panels altogether. And during those SRPs, that's where they tend to review the application safety cases. I mean, some might be reviewed by the engineers through standard product acceptance, but it really depends on what the product is and the requirements. Any more questions?
Just a quick question, Roger. So do you ever run kind of workshops or focus groups, kind of chances to get involved in that way?
Yeah, we're always in attendance at REAR events where we quite often have workshops. We're happy to also well, not REAR, but the majority of the sort of the bodies that undertake that same kind of work. We get involved with all of those, as I say, Rail Alliance. Yeah, there's a new organisation, I can't remember the name, but yeah, any of those. But also we're quite happy to set up any ad hoc sort of sessions as requested by others, including manufacturers.
So if anyone was interested in one of those sessions, would they get in touch with you, or who would be the kind of point in contact for organizing that?
Yeah, they can get in contact with me. Use the email address there. We can set something up. We undertake a lot of, a lot of briefings, both internal and external. Plus, hold sort of one-to-one surgeries at various events as well, so we can discuss specific products, because not everybody likes sort of asking questions in relation to their own products in a group or whatever. So we find that those kind of sessions work well as well.
Thanks. So I'm going to ask everyone to return to the main call in just a couple minutes.